Sports Radio.
Here comes the siren. I want to go higher. Oh, my goodness. Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
Oh, baby, for sure.
Cabin Sports Radio starts now.
Yes. Don't let Lecter last week throw you into thinking that this Monday is Thanksgiving Monday. No! Luckily, the Julian calendar doesn't cater to my stupidity. Thus, myself and Unbreakable Mike Gibbons back for another episode of Cabin Sports Radio before the Thanksgiving long weekend, which, of course, is next weekend. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I honestly forgot about that until you just brought it up. And of course, when you mentioned it last week, it obviously went over my head too. So we're both to blame.
We're focused on sports, right?
Yeah.
We're
And apparently Thanksgiving.
and apparently, yeah. Just why can't we have 2 weekends of Thanksgiving?
There we go.
Right?
Stuff our faces.
The
be
Americans
thankful.
basically get it. They get
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, then Christmas, like almost 2 weekends in a
Right.
row. Well, not
The
quite,
mad
but
shopping in between.
Yeah.
It's the greatest time of year.
I motioned for 2 weekends in a row of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
All right.
That would be nice.
That would make up for the rest of this garbage that 2020 has brought our way. Welcome to Cabin Sports Radio, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. Lots to talk about today, of course. In the wake of last week's episode, the Stanley Cup was awarded to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll talk more about that later on in the show. The NBA Finals still going on right now, and some more stuff that we'll get to. So let's get into it. Let's not waste any time. Let's take a look at our CSR headlines with, of course, the best just theme song in general.
Yeah.
No lyrics needed. No real hook. But you know what it's from. Take it away, Mike.
Here's our special Thanksgiving edition of our Cabin Sports Radio headlines. The Miami Heat took Game 3 of the NBA Finals thanks to a historic effort from Jimmy Butler. The star guard had a 40-point triple-double and willed his shorthanded team to a 115-104 win over the Lakers last night to trim their series deficit to 2-1. Butler becomes just the third player to record a 40-point triple-double in the NBA Finals. Another key to victory was neutralizing Anthony Davis, who only recorded 15 points. Game 4 goes tomorrow night.
Man, Jimmy Butler.
Oh, yeah.
I think I was talking about it last week. The guy is he's an X factor.
Yep.
He can, when he comes to life, it's like he can just win games on his own. Not exactly won it on his own, but like you said, 40-point triple-double. The Miami Heat back in the series. And, man, the Lakers just look demoralized. They're still up in the series, but a lot, of course, is being made of LeBron James walking off the court with like 15 seconds left in the game. Interesting look to that series now after Game 3.
Certainly made it interesting, that's for sure. You can't, as long as he's in the fold, it feels like you can't really rule that team out right now. He was a man possessed last night. I think in the last 2 games, he's missed 6 minutes. That's how much they need him on the court. So I think he sat 3 minutes in games 2 and 3, respectively. And they needed every single minute out of him last night. 40 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. He was unstoppable. He was seeking out the best matchup. He was going one-on-one at LeBron James on the other end of the floor. He was trying to guard him as well. Kelly Olynyk, Kamloops, BC native on the Heat, getting some really good minutes for them too, and he's played some really solid defense on Anthony Davis. But you heard Jimmy Butler say post-game that it really came down to rebounding. That was the emphasis for them heading into the game because they were just getting outmuscled, outworked, outboarded pretty bad in the opening 2 games. And losing someone like Bam Adebayo, of course, they didn't have Goran Dragic either, so that's why they were so shorthanded last night. That's going to hurt on the glass without Adebayo's presence, but they were able to effectively neutralize, or as best as you can anyways in these playoffs, Anthony Davis, who had a very quiet night with only 15 points. The Lakers made it interesting throughout, even in the fourth, I think taking a 2-point lead with 9 minutes left. But every single time they got close or just got over the hump, Miami would go on another run and led completely by Jimmy Butler, who was just unstoppable down the stretch. Really a man possessed, wanted the win from minute one, and was able to get it in the end.
Now, I still think, and I think most people are on the train that like the Lakers are probably going to win this series.
Yeah.
Still, it's nice that that Miami is making it a series, and that sounds very condescending to say it that way. Well, thanks for showing up and making it entertaining. But still, the overwhelming favorites, and you have to think that this is a wake up call for the LA Lakers, and they are probably going to wake up because there is too much talent and too much veteran leadership on that team for them not to face a loss like this and come back stronger from it. Like you said, Jimmy Butler only taking 6 minutes of rest. You got to wonder, he's going to wear down at some point.
Yeah.
I'm sure his conditioning is fantastic, and I mean, I'm sure there's also some pretty conventional wisdom to the thought that if a guy's hot, just feed him the ball.
Yeah.
Keep him out there. Let him keep doing what he's doing. But you got to think that with again, a big physical team like the Lakers, they are going to respond, and surely they're going to wear him down eventually.
Yeah, he just needs to go to the bubble barber. That's the only thing I noticed. And Charles Barkley was ripping him a little bit too. He looks like he needs to go in and get a fresh cut. But hey, whatever he's doing to this point, it's working. He's in great shape. He was out working LeBron for most of the night. 31 years old. This is his first crack at the finals. Few people deserve to be there more than he does. Especially, as you alluded to in our last show, his name was sort of dragged through the mud a little bit in the off season. People questioning why he went to Miami. There were reports that Kawhi wanted to team up with him, potentially even in LA. And can you imagine Butler on that team instead of someone like Kawhi Leonard right now? They would probably be in the finals right now. He's just an absolute competitor. He's a dog. And he's really, I think, proven a lot of people wrong. Look at all the last few teams he's been on. The last time the Timberwolves were in the playoffs, he was on the roster. The last time the Bulls were in the playoffs, he was on the roster. The last time the 76ers had a significant playoff run last year against the Raptors, he was the alpha male on a team that had really good players in Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, JJ Redick, Tobias Harris. He was the go-to guy.
Yeah.
So he joins teams. He demands a ton from his teammates. He keeps them accountable. He demands the absolute best from them because that's what he puts in himself. I think there were reports when he first joined the team, he showed up for the first practice at 3 a.m. to get a workout in. Like that is Black Mamba mentality right there, right? That is some Kobe Bryant stuff right there.
Well, that's why he doesn't have time to get a haircut.
There you go. He is too busy.
There's no barber open at 2:30 in the morning.
But you could tell. He was unbelievable last night. So joins very exclusive company, LeBron James, whom he outplayed last night, and Magic Johnson, the only two other players to record triple-doubles in the finals. And I think LeBron's... No, I'm thinking back to the 2018 finals against the Cavs. It might have been against the Warriors, sorry. It might have been in that series. He definitely dropped 51. I remember that in game one, but I don't think it was quite a triple-double. In any case, his numbers in the playoffs are, and especially the finals, are off the charts.
Yeah.
But was bested. So last night was the first time ever LeBron James has been scored in terms of points, rebounds, and assists. By an opponent, including his teammates.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Butler really had a game for the ages last night. But like you said, can he continue to play at this level? I don't think you're going to get another stinker like that from Anthony Davis. He'll probably figure things out.
Yeah.
So I think the X factors to me are, one, Miami's health. Can Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo come back for game 4? Sounds like Adebayo is probably closer than Dragic, who has a plantar tear in one of his feet. Adebayo has a neck strain. So I think there's some optimism that he'll be able to go in Game 4, which would give them a huge boost. He's really versatile, can get rebounds for you, can guard Anthony Davis, is a very versatile scorer. But then the other thing is, what is the surrounding cast around LeBron going to provide? Because he was still good last night, just shy of a triple-double himself. 25, 8, and 10 or something like that, which is amazing for anyone else's stat line, but a pretty pedestrian effort, honestly, which is crazy. That's how much we take LeBron James for granted. But really, we cannot on this occasion take anything away from Jimmy Butler. He was absolutely unbelievable.
And I mean, like you've talked about, he's a guy who has now, over the course of his career, established himself as someone that you can bring in and he can potentially, if you've already got a competitive team, he could insert him into that lineup and he can take you to the next level. But it's one thing to overshadow LeBron James in one game. It's a pretty tall order to do it in 3 more games now. Yeah. So that is, obviously he's going to need some of those injured players to get back if the Miami Heat want to have any chance of tying up the series and then going ahead. So if he can do it, that will be a Herculean effort. Absolutely,
it would be a win for the ages. Even last night's game, in one game itself was a win for the ages, just given how massively undermanned they were. But it's tough. We've seen this before too, even in this playoffs. The Lakers go down 1-0 against the Trailblazers, down 1-0 against the Rockets. I think they were tied after 2 games with the Nuggets. And then there were those clips, those now infamous clips of Damian Lillard dancing, when they secured the Game 1 win. Russell Westbrook talking some smack. Jamal Murray jiving, when they tied things up. And then I don't know if you caught it, but at the end of last night's game, right after getting an and one and effectively the dagger, Jimmy took out his mouth guard and told LeBron, "You in trouble now."
Uh-oh.
So
no.
We will see.
No, Jimmy, no.
I know. We'll see. Haven't you learned? So we will see, though. He's, out of all those guys I mentioned, all great players, obviously. But Jimmy, he's different. He is an absolute competitor, probably the most competitive guy in the league. And he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. Yeah. Like I said in the offseason, people saying, he's going to South Beach to enjoy the weather. You know, he's not trying to win a championship. He's going there to hang out on the beach. No, this guy's got goals. They've got a great team around him. Last night, Tyler Hero had a great game. Olynyk, like I said, Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson. They're getting production from a lot of guys. So I think last week I said Lakers in 6, and I obviously have a tremendous amount of respect for the Heat. But I see a pretty angry Lakers team coming out next game. I don't think Davis has another stinker. Maybe LeBron goes off for an even bigger game than we saw from Jimmy the other night. But if the Heat can get healthy and rally around Jimmy Butler, who had a fantastic game, they could make this pretty interesting. Maybe the Lakers are in trouble. I don't know.
Fun to watch. Looking forward to it. So again, game 4 goes down tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah. Okay.
Tomorrow night.
Looking forward to that. Turning to the NHL now, of course, I mentioned we're going to talk, give it a little wrap up of the Stanley Cup Finals a little bit later on. But some news since then, speaking of franchise players, New York Rangers have made an unfortunate move. I mean, one that I think we all probably saw coming, but sad nevertheless.
That's right. The New York Rangers have officially bought out the final year of Henrik Lundqvist's contract, ending the goaltender's 15-year run as the face of the franchise. The future Hall of Famer is owed $5.5 million in total salary for the 2020-2021 season. Lundqvist is the Rangers' all-time leader in several goalie stats, including games played, wins, save percentage, and shutouts. He also won the Vezina Trophy as the league's top netminder in 2012 and was a finalist on 2 other occasions.
I was really sad to see that news.
Me too.
It's just kind of an unfortunate byproduct of the salary cap era for all of the good things that the salary cap era has brought to the NHL with regards to, parity and competitiveness for small market and big market teams, which is obviously a good thing.
Yep.
Because, most of us up here, you and I are Leafs fans, but obviously there are a lot of Oilers fans, lots of Flames fans, lots of Winnipeg Jets fans. You need to have that salary cap that factor in there to give those teams any chance of being competitive, and it's proved that through the years since they brought it in. But this is one of those unfortunate byproducts. You have a guy who has for 15 years been without question the face of the New York Rangers, one of the most historic franchises in NHL history, no less. One of the original 6. And this guy who started in, I think, 2005, 2006, his rookie year, just right from the start, he was the guy. And, every year the McDonald's hockey cards would come out and Henrik Lundqvist would be on the pack. Like, he has just been the unquestioned leader of that team for 15 years. You get to the end of his contract now, which, I mean, it was a monster contract.
Yeah.
He was getting paid somewhere in the neighborhood with I think, bonuses, somewhere in the neighborhood of like $10 million. Yeah. And when you compare that to his stats the last 3 years, they had noticeably slipped. I mean, the Rangers have not been a good team for the last 3 years. And largely over the course of Henrik Lundqvist's 15-year career, have not really been that good at team.
No.
Like, he has made them a competitive team by and large. Had one Stanley Cup final appearance, lost to the LA Kings. I don't think that's really a blemish on his I mean, it always is a blemish on a player's record when they didn't win a Stanley Cup, but I mean, you certainly couldn't blame that on Henrik Lundqvist. Yeah. He was arguably the reason that they made it that far, and the reason that they were ever a team that was worth talking about in his 15-year career. So that's just, when I saw that news, I was like, man, that's so sad. Like, that shouldn't be. You should have players like that going out on their own terms.
Right.
And I mean, I don't, who knows? He's 38 years old. You could say, maybe it's time to pack it in anyway. Obviously, his stats are not what they used to be. But you want to send those players off in a nice way. Not a buyout is just it's so heartless,
right?
And
to have those stats with an original 6 franchise too, I think that puts it into even more perspective for me. When you're talking about Toronto, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, Montreal, the most storied franchises in the entire league, and you've got this guy leading in almost every major statistical category.
Yep.
He is really wins, save percentage, shutouts.
Yeah.
But what else could you want in a goaltender? That's how good he was, and his ties to the franchise go back even further than 2000. I think he was actually drafted. I think I saw 2000. So he's been with the club basically for 20 seasons, but probably not getting regular minutes until the 05-06 season, and has just run with it ever since. A fantastic ambassador for the game. He was modeling at some point. I mean, this guy's he's
gorgeous.
Of course, right? One of the best Swedish goalies. Maybe the best Swedish goalie ever.
I think probably,
representing his country on the international stage. Just a fantastic ambassador for the game. A pro's pro, right? Yeah. Vezina winner in 2012. Finalist on 2 other occasions. I think top 6 for Vezina voting for 10 seasons. So that just speaks to longevity right there. He was that good for a franchise that had its moments, right? You mentioned the Stanley Cup Finals loss against the Kings, a couple other conference finals and conference semifinals appearances. Unfortunately, we're never able to get over the hump, but like you said, I don't consider that a blemish on his resume, which is really quite stacked for his really long run with a really storied franchise. But sad to see it end this way. He said he's not done. He's still got a lot to give to the game. There might be some suitors out there. Some of them come to mind: Colorado, Vancouver, Washington, Dallas, Chicago. I think there's going to be a bit of some musical chairs this summer, maybe. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say summer. I'm so used to the off season being in the summer.
What month is it?
Yeah, right. In this off season, right there, a couple marquee goaltenders on the market or soon to be unrestricted free agents. So we might see some shuffling, but really unfortunate as a victim of the salary cap. It's a stagnant cap, especially with COVID-19. And they've got some newer guys that are in the fold now with Georgiev and Shesterkin. So really a casualty of the cap, which is sad for really a legend to go out that way.
Yeah, so like you said, he's alluded to the fact that he's not done. He wants to continue playing, and on a lucrative contract, could be a good pickup. As we've talked about how as the years go by, it seems more and more like the tandem goalie is kind of just the way of the future for the NHL. So I think, you get him on a good contract. He could be a great tandem goalie feature with perhaps a young goalie who you're looking for to find a mentor. I mean, you're not going to find a better mentor than Henrik Lundqvist for any young, hopeful franchise goalie out there. You mentioned drafted by the Rangers, and yes, he was drafted by the New York Rangers in the 2000 NHL entry draft. Do you know what round?
Ooh, I'm going to say like 4.
Seventh round draft pick, 205th overall for arguably one of the greatest goaltenders in NHL history, and certainly the greatest goaltender, I think, in New York Rangers history,
Absolutely.
Which, like you said, is that's saying quite a bit considering how much history that franchise has. And I mean, you look at, you think of who the cream of the crop goaltenders are in the league right now, and I mean it's been Carey Price for how many years. Similar to Henrik Lundqvist, he has only won one career Vezina trophy. He did win a Hart that same year, so I mean that was a pretty big year. But only one Vezina for two guys who, for the better part of the last 10 to 15 years, have been the best goaltenders, considered the elite. And you compare the stats, and they're very, very similar. Exact same career save percentage at .918.
Wow.
Henrik Lundqvist actually, if he was to go out now, finishing with a slightly better career goals against average than Carey Price at .244. Price at .248 goals against average. And shutouts, he's got 14 more career shutouts than Carey Price, who at the age of 33, you got to think he's probably got 3 more good years, 3, 4, if he can stretch it out, good years left in him. Probably not going to catch Henrik Lundqvist in career shutouts. So, I mean, that says something as well. For a guy who, for the most part, led that franchise kicking and screaming into, competitiveness. 10 shutouts in 2008, 11 shutouts in 2011. And it was always playing behind teams that, like, they were good enough to get to the playoffs. And I think that maybe that was, like, the mantra of the franchise at the time. Like, just be good enough to get to the playoffs. And then, who knows what could happen after that. It seemed like Henrik Lundqvist, there was always a lot of weight on his shoulders with regards to making that team competitive. But he did it year after year. And just sad to see that is the way that his career with the New York Rangers comes to an end. But it is what it is. Maybe he will have a strong year in a tandem situation with another franchise, but of course that remains to be seen. Going to take a break in just a bit, but just a couple other NHL things before we wrap that up. You may have seen that the Toronto Maple Leafs made an announcement that they have re-signed Jason Spezza to a 1-year league minimum. Spezza very excited about that.
I'm happy to know it's all over with and we can kind of move on.
He's very excited.
That almost rivaled the Kawhi Leonard laugh. Oh my God, I wasn't prepared for that. Wow.
That's a classic.
He's excited. He sounded like a giddy little kid right there.
He can't wait. Can't wait to get back on that ice. And you know what? And I am convinced it was that fight in Game 4
that secured him
that contract.
Yeah.
Because if that doesn't happen, the Leafs probably just continue to wilt for the rest of that game, bow out, and no one thinks a second thought. Jason Spezza's, relatively unremarkable career as a Toronto Maple Leaf ends, and that's probably the end of his career. But he gets in a fight, which nobody saw coming.
Right.
It sparks the team. They come back. They win the game in overtime, force it to Game 5. They lose anyway. Yeah. But Jason Spezza was the spark that made that comeback happen and gave the Leafs a chance in Game 5. And I'm we don't want to glorify fighting anymore. That's kind of the age we're in. But I am convinced that if he doesn't do that, we're probably not talking about a re-signing of Jason Spezza.
Now, that was the best late game rally probably in franchise history, given what the stakes were at that time. Unfortunate after, tying it up and winning in overtime on an Austin Matthews goal that they go and lay a goose egg in Game 5, deciding Game 5, and that's all she wrote. But yeah, a nice signing, right? Like a feel-good signing, a hometown kid, league minimum. He'll slot in to that fourth line center position, and and just eat up some minutes, honestly. And I think for both sides, this is a pretty nice compromise. And maybe you're right. That fight, that was the one that sealed the deal.
Maybe if you dropped the gloves in Game 5, they wouldn't have won the series.
There you
Who
go.
knows? And finally, the Minnesota Wild traded Devin Dubnyk to the San Jose Sharks for picks, basically a 7th-round pick with Dubnyk headed to San Jose, a 5th-round pick headed back in return. And now the Sharks all of a sudden have a very solid goalie tandem with Devin Dubnyk and Martin Jones. So interesting to see if that will be their strategy heading into the next season to kind of split time between those two. But anyway, we are going to take a break and come back. We'll talk some NFL. We will talk some Blue Jays playoffs, which happened in the blink of an eye when we come back.
The Cabin Sports Radio Podcast, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward.
Cabin Sports Radio, proudly presented by Sport North, moving sport forward. For more on them and sport in the North, including the Kids Sport NWT program, check out sportnorth.com.
First 3 stars of the game, we're going to do something totally different, but we need to acknowledge these people. Hey, 3rd star of the game, in no order. They're all 1st stars, but because we're Canadian, we are going to do the 3-star. 3rd star of the game. This goes to everybody, the staff, the grounds crew, the massage therapists, the interpreters, all of you, the weight trainers, the nutritionists, everybody here that contributed to help us get to where we're at. Let's get 2 big claps to the Ric Flair. Woo! 2nd star of the game again, in no specific order. The coaching staff on field, they led us, they guided us, they allowed us to get out there and play our game. They came to work every day, they kept with us, they stuck with us, good and bad. They were here, they did an awesome job, and let's go ahead and acknowledge them with 2 gigantic claps and a Ric Flair. Woo! 1st star of the game, it's always about the players. Way to go! Way to go! In no sequential order. But we've had guys that came in and played 1 pitch, 1 inning, 65 innings, 65 games. Every person around this circle made a huge impact on the ball club. Way to go, guys that didn't even play on this team. They were helping us get ready in Rochester. Everybody here made a gigantic contribution. Be very proud and happy of yourselves. Great job, players. 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Woo! It's not over. It's just starting, boys. Enjoy this moment. You never know when it's your last. And it will be the only time that all of us are here in this spot. The only time. Enjoy the crap out of it. These are the moments we play for. These are the moments we dream about. It's happening. It's a reality. Let's go out there and give it our all. Leave everything on the field and see where the chips lay. Because, boys, it's going to be a good one. I can feel it. Let's go. 2 claps and Ric Flair.
That, of course, was Blue Jays manager Charlie Montoyo firing up the troops last week. But unfortunately, the team's postseason run was a short one. The club, who most figured wouldn't even make the playoffs, bowed out to the first-seeded Tampa Bay Rays in 2 straight games last week. It was Toronto's first postseason appearance since 2016 and wouldn't have even happened without this year's expanded playoff field. Tampa advances to play the New York Yankees in the divisional round, and Game 1 just got underway. Lecter, it is 1-1.
Give me 2 losses and a Ric Flair. Loss. Woo!
Yeah, really good speech.
Great speech.
Yeah, really good. Like that got me fired up. Sitting here, Cabin Sports Radio, so I imagine it got the boys fired up. They had a good Game 1. Eventually bowing out 3-1, but no gas left in the tank. Their ace, Ryu, got lit up in Game 2. They lose 8-2 and go out. It was just a best of 3. And they only got in as the 8th and final seed with the MLB's expanded playoff format. So that drew them a really tough match against the Tampa Bay Rays, who finished the season at 40-20. The Jays, for their part, had a good season. They overachieved, I think, with a record of 32-28. But a pretty tough draw for a really young, inexperienced team. But they got one round under their belts now, so hopefully they come back stronger.
Even though I know the answer is no, because the MLB is one of the most traditionalist leagues, if not the most traditionalist league in North American sports, I gotta wonder, I wonder if there is any consideration to continuing this expanded postseason format. Because, with baseball, it just seems like it's almost impossible to make the playoffs. It just it's got to be the hardest North American pro sport to make the playoffs in. It just seems like there's just such a small window, and there's teams that you're not even upset if you don't make the playoffs because it's so hard to do, and you just know that it's going to be the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox. There's just going to be a small handful of teams every year, the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
There's just like the same teams every year. And I mean, I know part of that is kind of what we alluded to before, as opposed to the NHL, which has the salary cap. Baseball doesn't have that. So the big money teams are allowed to just load up at their luxury. And so, I mean, that's the way it is. And if no one really feels like that's a problem and wants to change it, then it's not going to change. But it just seems like it wouldn't really be that big of a change or really take that much doing to I mean, like, it's baseball, right? So you have back-to-back games where you play 2 games in a day. You could play a 3-game series arguably over the course of one day.
Yeah.
And then you'd be on to the next round. So, as opposed to hockey or football, or even basketball, like more contact games where you need a day off in between because players are drained after a game. It seems like it would be a very easy fix, and you would just allow more possibility for other teams that, maybe just never factor into the playoff picture, and then more fans get to actually enjoy the postseason rather than just, let's go out, catch a few games, and that's the baseball season.
Yeah. And I remember it even being a big deal. I can't remember how many seasons ago this was when they introduced even the second wild card. That was a big deal because, of course, you're going to have the divisional winners squeak in. But yeah, back in the day, it was the divisional winners and a wild card. Now, I believe there's a play-in series between. It might even be a best of 5 between the 2 wild card holders. But even that, pretty tight. When you look at the the NBA and the NHL, half of the teams are making the dance. And as we can see on any given year, we've had years where, it's been the 7th and 8th seed. Oh, yeah. In a conference final or something like that.
The New York Islanders in a conference final, and they were, actually on the outside looking in when the season stopped.
And that's what's so nice. The NHL playoffs are usually much more unpredictable than something like the NBA, where you see the better teams advance. But at least, like you said, you're getting more exposure for more clubs.
Exposure is that's a touchy word.
Yes,
little dicey.
A little dicey.
Maybe get away from that one.
All right. But you're right. It is a traditionalist game, right? Yeah. So where we're seeing big changes in the NBA, the NHL, in terms of how the game's played. Huge emphasis on offense, right? Yeah. Like the pace of play for basketball games is through the roof. The 3-point shot has completely revolutionized the game. It's basically positionless play now. You can roll. You don't even need a traditional center anymore. Same in hockey. The game has never been faster. Yep. Goals are being scored at an all-time rate. So how can baseball? How can it reinvent itself to make it more appealing when viewership was an issue, maybe still is an issue. So there was concern from pitchers now that they're changing baseballs to hit more of them out of the ballpark because that's what fans want to see. We get traditionals getting mad when, guys are hitting huge home runs, and heaven forbid they throw that bat a little too far, a little, further than they should be. Yeah. So you're right. It's going to take a little bit more because it is America's great pastime. And maybe it takes a little bit more getting used to. But it would be nice, to see a bit of an expanded field, get some more teams into the dance, and maybe get some fresh winners. Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, it was even a miracle that they had this season at all, pandemic aside. And I don't think this is necessarily a traditional, rubbing against the grain sort of thing. But the 60-game season was not well received. I think that had a bit more to do with contracts and not receiving their full salary for that. But it's a big change like that, even in the face of everything that's going on worldwide. That was a lot to get over. And, they got it done. So I don't see, assuming that before next baseball season, and obviously baseball
has a lot more of a luxury than the NBA and the NHL with regards to their follow-up season, because they're just bang, bang right off the bat.
Right.
Baseball has a nice long winter, a nice spring. They can kind of figure out where things are going from there, and hopefully the pandemic has settled down.
Yeah.
Made things a little bit easier to navigate, and they don't have to consider doing a 60-game season or anything like that again. But it is interesting, yeah. Like I don't really see what wouldn't be a benefit of
right.
it. Potentially just getting more teams involved in the postseason, especially if you don't really think that fringe teams are just the way that baseball works. If you don't really think they're going to be a threat, then why not? Why not just have, a one-game extra round, something like that you can just, do a doubleheader, and if it calls for a third game, you have like a tiebreaker, 5 innings or something like that. I mean, it seems like they're okay with kind of shaking things up in certain ways, but very traditionalist in other ways. But just a thought. It might be interesting to see, and just might have a good, well-rounded effect with regards to audiences and viewerships just staying interested in the league as it heads into the postseason. But anyway, there it is. That was a very strange Major League Baseball season, and hopefully things can be a little more normal next spring.
Yeah, one thing to look out for is where the heck are the Blue Jays going to play next year? So, of course, Buffalo was a very gracious host for them this year. They played all their games out of their quote-unquote home arena there. The MLB has said it's going to do whatever it can to get home games played in Toronto next year, where, comparatively, the virus is much more under control than it is in parts of the United States. Where the Marlins are right now in Florida, we know that the situation there is quite bad, which ironically is where the NBA bubble is. Thankfully, they've had no issues, but there are pockets in the United States where the virus is still very much in play and affecting day-to-day life down there. So we'll see what that brings. And I don't know if it'll be a overly exciting offseason for the Blue Jays. They're an up-and-coming team, so they don't really need to do too much in terms of a roster shakeup. But that will be, I think, the one thing to watch closest. I believe they're going to have a bubble playoffs in San Diego, I believe. So that's good that they'll be able to have some isolated play there and have their own type of bubble, and have a fall classic, which will be nice. So we'll hopefully be able to see all championships doled out during this COVID-ravaged season and year, as it were. Speaking of, let's maybe shift gears to a league that is still very much in the fight against COVID-19. The National Football League postponed last night's game between the New England Patriots and Kansas City Chiefs following positive tests of COVID-19 on both teams. Patriots quarterback Cam Newton and Chiefs practice squad quarterback Jordan Ta'amu were both added to the league's COVID-19 reserve list over the weekend. Meanwhile, a separate outbreak on the Tennessee Titans forced their game against the Pittsburgh Steelers to be moved to the end of the month. The Patriots and Chiefs game was bumped back to tonight and is currently underway. Lecter, we've got a score of 6-3 Chiefs over the Patriots.
That's thrilling stuff, and hopefully everyone's healthy.
Yes. So there are a lot of questions coming out of this. Of course, you remember shortly after the MLB season got underway, it was around the same time, about a month in, that was when the outbreak within the Marlins organization happened. There was cancellations left and right, series postponed, and that's when, right at the worst possible time, thankfully, NHL, NBA, no cases. Their bubbles worked perfectly. The NHL is now wrapped up. The NBA will be this week with no positive cases. But the other two leagues, the MLB and the NFL, not going the bubble routes. There are no fans in attendance, of course, but you still have really big teams, like double the size of an NBA and an NHL team in cases, traveling from one city to another. They're going home to their families. Maybe they're hanging out with their friends. We're only in week 4. And we've got 2 games postponed, one much further down the line. And it's not just those games, but it's going to impact the rest of the schedule now, too. The Chiefs, for instance, they're obviously playing tonight. They've got a game, I think, next Thursday, and then a game the following Saturday or something. So they've got 3 games in a span of 10 days, I think it is. Which, playing football you need that recovery time.
Absolutely.
No bye factored in, so there might have to be some shuffling going down. And I know that we only mentioned that it was the practice squad quarterback, but who's he sharing a meeting room with? Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
The biggest star in the game, right? The reigning MVP. So, there's a real chance of exposure, of contamination here. And once it gets into an organization, we've seen it go through the locker room and then infect other teams. So let's hope that they're able to get things underway. And obviously there's going to be isolation requirements and policies in place. And hopefully it goes the route of the MLB. They were able to settle things down, because you don't want to see more games pushed back.
No, for sure. And I think the sad thing is, despite the fact that obviously there were, limited crowds, like there are, I think teams are doing it on a team by team basis. Might just depend on what the pandemic situation is like in their respective cities.
Right.
But I know there are teams that are doing just reduced crowds.
Yeah.
And so you'll have like lots of space between anyone sitting in the stands. No one's sitting beside each other. I don't know if you saw in Denver, but they had cardboard cutouts of all of the characters of South Park.
Yes. That was good.
All wearing masks, of course, being very safe. So that was, it's fun to see how teams are coming up with creative ways to kind of, at least simulate that live experience and having at least the look of the crowd for the TV audience. Right?
Yeah.
And so that was fun. But there have been teams that have had small crowds, and obviously they have taken proactive measures to try and reduce as much, threat as possible of spread of COVID-19. But at the same time, just the fact that they had crowds at all and were traveling from city to city between games, like I think anyone who was thinking critically about this, you're going to have a case.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. We talked weeks and weeks ago about some of the measures that they had in place with regards to keeping practice squads and starting squads completely separate. And I think it was with regards to quarterbacks.
Bubble quarterback, yeah.
Bubble quarterbacks,
that's right.
or COVID quarterbacks, or whatever you wanted to call them. Basically, they would be practiced up, but they would be kept completely separate from the team. So if Patrick Mahomes, for example, or Cam Newton did develop COVID-19, they could just put them into quarantine, bring in the bubble quarterback, and supposedly they would be, ready to go, right in sync with the offense as they should be. Of course, it works better on paper than it does on practice. Yeah. And I don't necessarily know if this has been put into practice. I guess we're going to find out now that Cam Newton cannot start for the New England Patriots for at least the next 2 weeks. Hopefully he, doesn't have too bad of symptoms and makes a full recovery, obviously. But this is going to really impact teams. I mean, football is more than any other sport. That one position, that quarterback position, really makes or breaks your entire squad, which is ironic for the reason that you pointed out, that rosters are so big compared to any other major North American sport. That one player makes such a crucial difference to a winning or a losing team that it's almost silly to think that you're going to come into a season with all of this going on and have, total parity where we're going to see the best teams versus the best team, the ones that deserve to be there. It's going to be, it sounds morbid to say, but it's going to be the ones that survive that make it there.
It's funny now that you bring up the conversation we had several weeks ago about the bubble quarterback, because now it's more relevant than ever, really. We've got the league's flagship franchise in the New England Patriots, one of the best dynasties ever, let alone in the National Football League. Their most important player, their quarterback, all the offense goes through Cam Newton, and he's now shelved. Is he going to miss? He's definitely going to miss a game. Oh, yeah. He's obviously not playing tonight. He's probably going to miss next week. Could he miss more time? That depends. And he'll have to have 2 consecutive negative tests.
Right.
And then depending on, if he's symptomatic or asymptomatic, that will determine how much time he is eventually going to miss. But this is going to put a number of teams at a really significant disadvantage. And like you said, and going back to the bubble quarterback conversation, you hope there was that separation between the practice squad and the regular squad, because you've got now suddenly potentially Patrick Mahomes in close contact with someone on the practice squad who has now tested positive for COVID-19, and that would obviously be worst case scenario. The reigning league MVP missing time. Both teams off to a pretty good start, and their quarterbacks are a huge reason for that. So teams could be at a very significant disadvantage if players, especially in that position, start missing significant time. And you like to hope that people hopefully didn't become complacent, maybe overconfident. There was relatively smooth training camps were held by all teams, and the start to the season pretty good. But now we've got a significant outbreak within the Titans. Their game against the Steelers canceled, and then of course two people in the quarterback position for both the Patriots and the Chiefs missing time. So you don't want to see it, and hopefully more teams don't suffer by missing some really crucial players during this COVID season. Yeah,
I mean, we talk about tandem goalies, in the NHL. I maybe if this is if COVID-19 keeps lingering around and continues to be a factor through this season and God forbid next season, maybe tandem quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That might be the way you have to go. You have to have a 1A and a 1B.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. Obviously, like we said, hopefully, Cam Newton and anyone else who may have tested positive makes a full recovery. Hopefully they're continuing to be as safe as they can, as safe as you possibly can while still traveling from city to city with large squads of people.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, hoping that it doesn't affect the rest of the season too negatively, and they continue to put measures in place to try and limit the spread as much as possible. All right, we are going to finish off by talking a little bit of wrap-up with the Stanley Cup Finals. Of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning defeated the Dallas Stars to win their second franchise Stanley Cup, following up on their much-hated 2004 Stanley Cup victory over the Calgary Flames. That puck was in, Mike. I swear to God. Anyway, we're not going to go back to Martin Gelinas' disallowed goal. No, we won't go back that far. But yeah, I mean, I think this is it's the way we all figured it was going to go. I made an analogy to the Game of Thrones finale. It's kind of the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, it was just like,
I enjoy your tweets.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. You can follow me at Lecter on Twitter for hot takes on hockey, which are going to take a shelf life for a while until the, Toronto Maple Leafs make some more questionable signings. But yeah, it was, you kind of knew where it was going to go. You were talking off air about a friend who made a significant bet and made a significant amount of money after the Tampa Bay Lightning. They didn't even dispose of the Boston Bruins yet. You said they were up 2-1
in the second round,
and he pulled the trigger.
That's when he pulled the trigger.
Man, that's impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, when they knocked Boston out.
Yes,
I was convinced. I was like, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're the team to beat. Yeah, without question. I just don't see any teams really matching up against them. The New York Islanders, certainly not. They could maybe find a way to put the Lightning to sleep and just maul them into a loss, but they couldn't get it done. And then, we both agreed coming into the Stanley Cup Finals that if the Dallas Stars were able to pull it off, that would have been an amazing feat and would have made for a pretty incredible story. Not to take anything away from the Tampa Bay Lightning. They absolutely are the deserving Stanley Cup champions, but there was something a little bit anticlimactic about it.
Yeah, I think, and that was the nature of your tweet, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that it was anticlimactic. We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, we knew it was right.
Yes,
we knew where it was going, and it still was kind of like, And
now, of course, we can look down their roster, and I find I do this every year with a team that ends up winning it all. You have to have that composition of players, and you go up and down their roster. And they're so sound.
Yeah.
A nice collection of young talents and guys who have been there before and players who are elite at every position on the ice. So looking back now, it'd be like, well, why didn't I make that bet? Of course. Like they are positioned to be a very, very good hockey team.
Yep.
And they've just had a spell of bad luck. Obviously, making ends meet after a really disappointing playoff run last year against the Columbus Blue Jackets. No one saw that coming. But yeah, now in hindsight, we can look back and go, it makes perfect sense that this team won the Stanley Cup. They're built to win. They're good at every single position, and very, very well deserved. I think you said, and it would have been right after Corey Perry's overtime winning goal in Game 5. I think you came on the air the next day and said, "No, Tampa's going to figure this out.
Yeah,
it's still done." And you were right. 2-0. That was Vasilevsky's first ever playoff shutout.
Yeah,
too.
Which was shocking.
Nice. Yeah, again, right? Because they have players like Vasilevsky, Hedman, Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, who are all elite at their position, respectively. So, yeah, I was a little surprised myself to hear that was his first career playoff shutout. Couldn't have come at a better time.
Yeah.
A 2-0 win in Game 6. I think Dallas just ran out of gas. They were so banged up. We'll probably find out now what nagging injuries players were dealing with.
Yep.
I still remember that. Was it 2013 against the Blackhawks? We found out it was Patrice Bergeron
had
playing
like a collapsed
fractured
lung or something.
Ankle. Yeah, like a fracture. Perforated lung or something like that.
It's like, God.
This always happens, though. We find out it's a grind. It is a grind. Even with the COVID shortened season and coming back just to play in the bubble, it's playoff hockey from the get go. Really intense physical hockey, and unfortunately, I think they just ran out of gas at the end there. They were really banged up. The Lightning got a bit of a jolt of life with Stamkos making that heroic return in Game 4, it would have been.
5 minutes of ice time, one goal, one shot, one goal, and out.
It was a good story. The
captain made his presence felt.
Yeah, no, that was a great scene, seeing him raise the Stanley Cup. Bettman didn't get booed. There was no one there to boo him.
You know what? I had it on mute a little bit because I was streaming the game, and the stream was kind of glitchy. It was kind of cutting in and out, and so it made the audio like really annoying to listen to. So I had it on mute and was just watching the proceedings happen. And when I saw the cup come out and I saw Bettman come out, I was like, I got to turn it back up. I got to see if they're going to pipe in booze. Just for old time's sake.
That would be funny.
I mean, we're trying to create the atmosphere of normalcy. You can't make it any more normal than a rain of booze coming down on Gary Bettman, regardless of whether or not it makes sense based on the city they're in. Nevertheless, no booze for Gary Bettman. A nice break from him. There was a moment when he had the whole team gather around the cup.
That was a little awkward.
And he was in the middle of it. And again, I had turned the volume back down because it was annoying. And I was just watching this, and my jaw was slowly like starting to reach the floor. Because I was just like, is he not going to let them touch the cup? Are they not going to be allowed to pick up the cup because of COVID-19?
Right.
Is he going to stand there and be in the team photo?
Yes.
What are you doing, Gary Bettman? Luckily, no. He got the hell out of there. They got to pick up the cup, do the laps, and have a traditional Stanley Cup celebration.
Any public health official watching that was cringing.
For sure.
Let's pour the champagne in. Let's put our babies in it. Let's drink out of it. When they had really cool parade, by the way, I'm sure you saw a video of the boat parade.
Yes.
I can't think back. I was much younger then to 2004 when they won their first cup. If they did something similar, I don't know. Times were different then. We're, of course, in the midst of the pandemic.
I don't remember that.
The boat parade was pretty cool.
Pretty epic.
Taking the cup out on a jet ski. But any COVID rules just went out the window. They had fans. They were pouring champagne and beer for fans. They were partying pretty hard, but well deserved. A great Stanley Cup win, and what would have been a really hard time to win it in the bubble away from families. Which I'm sure made it all that more special. But kudos, they absolutely deserved it.
Yeah, it actually, we were talking a little bit earlier on in the show about 2014 and Carey Price, his phenomenal year, which of course included a gold medal at the Sochi Winter Olympics. And that Game 6, that final game between Tampa and Dallas, reminded me so much of the gold medal final between Team Canada and Team Sweden that year. It was, I think it was the same score too.
It was 3-0 the gold medal game.
3-0?
I think it was, yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was a 2-0 final or a 3-0 final. But
it was like 2:00 in the morning. I missed it.
Oh, yeah.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
I was there.
Maybe 5 o'clock. Either way, I missed it.
Yeah, it was quite early, but it was not a blowout, like a 2 or 3 goal game, but they just had it completely under control from start to finish. There just didn't seem like there was a moment when the Dallas Stars were not suffocating in that game. It was just such a sound team victory from start to finish for the Dallas Stars, and just really capped off a phenomenal playoff run for them. But yeah, like you said, you look at the makeups of the two teams, and Dallas just could not between, you look at Tampa and it's just skill, speed, scoring, grit, just a rock solid defensive depth, great coaching, one of the elite goaltenders in the league. It's very, very hard to match up against a team like that. And of course, Victor Hedman, very deserved Conn Smythe Trophy. You could have picked him out of one of 4 guys, and he was certainly one of them that deserved to have it. So yeah, hats off to the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, and how could we forget Patrick Maroon? 2 Stanley Cups in a row.
He's like the 6th player, I think, something like that, to go back-to-back with 2 different teams in consecutive years. I don't know also if you saw how close the Conn Smythe voting was.
I didn't.
Between Hedman and Point. It was a matter. So Kucherov fell back to 3rd,
right?
And it was a matter of 1 or 2 votes. I think it was one of the closest races for the Conn Smythe. Definitely
Canadian
in recent
sports
years.
writers, they always got to try and sneak a Canadian
I know.
in there. Right?
It was close.
So hats off to the Tampa Bay Lightning, 2nd franchise Stanley Cup win. But we would be remiss if we did not finish off this show pointing out the real star of the Stanley Cup playoffs. That, of course, Mr. Wes McCauley.
Good call on the puck out of play. Good job. Really good job. Thank you. Thanks. No problem. Thank you. Good announcement, too. Yeah. Well, it was about time, eh? What did I say about your swearing? Oh, you just said again. Yeah, I know, because you swear. Why am I the only one who's a bad guy? I know, but you say too. No, because you're saying like it's not. Then it makes me say. Oh, okay. Well, it's my fault. Holy. Yeah, it is. Here we go again. I'm going to start counting. I think you'll be ahead.